This episode is brought to you by the Colfax Avenue Business Improvement District. Looking for fun that's a little less fancy and a lot more Colfax? Even during VRT construction, your favorite street is bringing the vibes, food, fun, and unforgettable events. Show your love by visiting Colfax businesses or joining this spring for the Krabby for Colfax Seafood Boil fundraiser, the first annual Apothecary Tour, Big Wigs Bar Crawl, and the Colfax Avenue Community Cleanup. Support the places that make Denver, Denver. I mean, I love the people of Colfax. My favorite guy in a bathrobe, wig, cigar. So look, maybe I'll see him there. I'd love to see him there. That's what makes Colfax Colfax. You don't know who you're going to see. Colfax is always open, always authentic, and always worth the trip. Get all the event details and sign up at colfaxav.com. That's colfaxav.com. This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. Happy Air Quality Awareness Week! The biggest air quality issue in our mile-high summers is something called ground-level ozone. It's created from pollutants like car exhaust. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it is the leading cause of respiratory problems like asthma. But good news, you can help. This summer, you can take steps for better air, like switching to electric lawn equipment, upgrading your car to an EV, working from home, or just choosing to walk, bike, or scooter instead of drive. Sign up for Summer Ozone text alerts to know when it matters most. Just text Better Air CO to 21000 or visit simplestepsbetterair.org. Again, just text Better Air CO to 21000 or visit simplestepsbetterair.org. Today on CityCast Denver. As President Trump attempts to reshape the country in his own image, the arts world appears to be his next target. He's been trying to eliminate the National Endowment for the Arts since his first term, and just last week rescinded millions in NEA grants to arts organizations around the country, including 22 right here in Colorado. So I'm sitting down with Jamie Duffy, an advocate for artists and executive director of the local arts organization Youth on Record, to understand how Trump's plan might play out here. Today is Thursday, May 8th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Jamie Duffy, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Yay, excited to be here. It's been a couple years.
It's been a while. So I want to put this in context for folks, what some of these groups in Colorado have lost, like what it would mean for, say, an organization like Union Hall, which is a small art gallery downtown. They lost a $25,000 grant to support something called Rough Gems, which is their collaborative curatorial training program. They teach folks they give folks the space to curate exhibitions.
Yeah.
I've been to one.
I've been to several of them, and it's really an excellent opportunity for emerging visual creatives to come together and showcase their stories, their community, and it gives them an incredible platform to do that. So,
well, when they lose 25 grand in support, what does that mean in actuality?
Yeah. Well, I want to put this in context for Colorado. So what we can celebrate about Colorado is this. Coloradans in the nation participate in art more than any other state. We are number one. We go to the most performances, the most gallery openings, the most musical events, right? But already Colorado is in the bottom 10 for art support. So Coloradans love art. You love art. If you're listening, you probably have something that you've done this month, whether you're going to a gallery or a play or a night market or an art market or going to see local music, right? Or going to Red Rocks. We love to do that as Coloradans, but we already get so little funding. So these kind of cuts in Colorado, what we've got to look at is the trickle down effect, right? It's not just 25,000. So to put this in context for some of you, the NEA it's really difficult to get money from the NEA. The organizations who are funded by the NEA have spent at least a year getting accepted. And what does that mean to get accepted? Well, their staff, their team, their board are putting in all of their labor to write a grant application, get an audit done, put their staffing plan together, put their program plan together, fill out all of the really intense due diligence from the federal government. So if you're getting NEA funding, you have put in the hard work and the hard labor. Then you wait for a response. You get the response about a year later, which says, yes, you've been approved for $25,000. So now that's in your budget. So not only have you spent all the staff time getting there, now this is in your budget and you haven't pursued other sources. So I really want people to look at when you see a $10,000, $25,000, $50,000 cut, automatically in your mind, when you see that, double it. So for Union Hall, that amounts to a $50,000 loss because they've lost all that staff time, right?
That they put towards
the
grant
towards
application
just getting
process
accepted in the first place.
just for the NEA grant.
Just to get accepted in the first place. So then when these organizations get these letters that say this is no longer available to you, every single one of our Colorado organizations are going to go to the same sources now. Local foundation, local philanthropists to bridge that gap. And guess what? Spoiler alert, most of those foundations are not going to be able to bridge that gap. Now we've got the Bonfie Stanton Foundation.
I was just going to say, just announced this week, in wake of this, the Bonfie Stanton Foundation announced a grant program.
Yes.
Sort of an emergency
grant program. My understanding of this program is that if you're an organization who's been impacted by federal cuts, an arts organization, and your budget is less than $2 million, you can apply for anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. That's wonderful. But again, that goes back to the first point that I made, which is we're in the bottom 10 states for arts funding. So the Bonfie Stanton Foundation is a pillar for arts funding, but they're the only one. They are the only foundation in Colorado who is solely dedicated to arts funding.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We have other opportunities for arts, right? So we have other foundations that will look at arts. We have other foundations that might have a pillar that's around arts, but we do not have another foundation that is solely dedicated to funding arts in Colorado.
I also think it's interesting, though, with this thought that this understanding that Colorado is top for folks going to events, bottom for funding. We also have the Science and Cultural Facilities District funding.
That's right.
Which is a tax.
That's right.
That we decided on to support organizations like this.
Right.
So we do have good infrastructure.
We have that. And that the SCFD is really, a national model for, we have decided collectively as Coloradans that we want some of our tax dollars to go for arts and culture. The majority of those dollars are going to go to the top 5 arts and cultural institutions in Colorado, which is the Denver Art Museum, the Denver Center for Performing Arts, the Denver Zoo, the Denver Botanic Gardens. And so, so when you get to go to your free days, right? We all get to do that, right? And we all hopefully have experience
Zoo
of that.
Free days, yeah.
Zoo free days, museum free days, the Botanic Gardens, right? When you get to go to that, that's because we have a tax base that supports and underwriting that. I think part of the reason that we have so little funding outside of the SCFD for the arts in some ways is because of the SCFD, because people go, we've got that taken care of. We've got that, on lock. But here's how these cuts are going to have a bigger sort of impact for us, right? First, we have to look at the SCFD is in part funded through our tax dollars, right? And so when those are down, because let's say
sales tax is down this year. We already know that from the city budget.
Sales tax is down, right? So we know the SCFD is going to have less money to fund the arts. So we're already seeing a dip there, right? Our own pocketbooks are a dip, right? So we are looking at how much can I actually spend on this work, which is, or on this, on going to artistic events, right? Like
on this ticket to a DCPA show or a Red Rock show.
Exactly, right? So families are having to look at, and individuals are having to look at how much they can actually spend on the arts. So we do rely on government, you can call them subsidies, grants, to help underwrite free opportunities to experience the art in our nation, right? I mean, that is foundational, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness is on the same level as life and liberty. And we all derive so much joy, so much meaning, so much happiness from connecting to the arts in our community. And that's at risk right now.
This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. What does your mom want for Mother's Day? Well, my mom always just wants pictures of her kids, all together, with her grandkids. And this is a tall order because we don't all live in the same place. So I hate to spoil this for you, Brooke, because I know you're listening, but you're getting an Aura digital picture frame for Mother's Day, which is coming up soon, like May 11th. So don't forget. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter and featured in 495 gift guides last year. So next time you need to call your mom, you can also send her a new pic of you from that trip you've been telling her all about, right from your phone. I think the only picture my mom has of all of us together is at Casa Bonita. It's the only time maybe all of us were together. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day, too. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver mat frame. That's AURA frames.com. Use promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
So let's talk about artists directly, like beyond arts organizations like Union Hall losing these grants that have, fund all kinds of things, operational costs and such. What do cuts like this, how do they impact Colorado artists directly?
There's some estimates that the arts themselves employ 14,000 people just kind of in the direct arts, art making. Right? So these are people who get some to all of their revenue from this career path. Being an artist is a career path. And some people are hobbyist artists, and that's a beautiful thing. I myself am a visual artist, but I'm also an executive director and a festival manager. And so I don't necessarily rely on that for my income, but I work with the arts community every day who does. And so these kind of cuts are directly going to impact our artists who rely on anywhere from $5,000 to $150,000 a year to provide these kind of arts for us, for consumers, right? Like that is how they make their money. They are providing goods and services and performances that then we consume. But that is like every other sector, right? Because people will ask, well, why is the arts subsidized? Spoiler alert. Everything is subsidized in some way or the other, right? Farming is subsidized, right? When we are building any kind of city infrastructure, we rely on government funding to help us get those projects going.
We're looking at one of these right now with the soccer stadium.
Exactly.
That would be considered
right?
a subsidy.
Sports is subsidized, right? Their stadiums are often subsidized through taxpayer dollars. So we collectively decide as a population what we want, that we're paying taxes. We don't have as much say about where they go, but a very small part of that does go to the pursuit of happiness, which is the arts.
So let's go back to the NEA. And I'm thinking like, okay, you were talking about the tough nature of getting an NEA grant. It is a process. Well, what is there part of you that says, well, then screw the NEA. Why do we want the government picking and choosing who gets that money and who gets, which art gets made?
Yeah. I mean, this is the interesting moment of this time, right? Many of the reforms that we're seeing, so let's just stick with the NEA. Those of us in the arts community have a lot of respect for what the NEA has done to prioritize arts in America. And they've really prioritized a lot of rural communities and mountain communities, tribal communities. I mean, we've loved to see this. The process is really challenging, right? Like that's the bureaucracy that people are talking about. Like, well, it shouldn't be this hard. And, so reform needs to happen.
You think that the NEA could have used some reform?
But the NEA absolutely could use some
prior
reform,
to this,
right? And I think they've started to work on that. I think some of the really great work, they've heard us, and so much of the money that has been moved to regional arts agencies, to local arts agencies, to be the grant redistributor, that was in response to us saying, "Why are you all doing all of the funding?" Right? Like let's move this a little bit more local, and they've been really responsive to that. But guess what? Reform takes time. Reform takes experts at the table to help us understand what kind of reforms has to happen. I think the real question that we have to ask ourselves about reform is who's responsible for the reform? Who gets to make the decision, right? I'm very, very, very curious about who decided the priorities for the NEA. Based on those priorities, it doesn't seem like arts leaders put those priorities forward. So then we have to ask ourselves, who is putting the priorities? Who is doing the reform at the NEA? Who is saying this is what the priorities are? And my guess is, I don't have this as a guarantee, but I'm pretty informed. It seems like the executive branch of the United States government has said, this is what the arts priorities are in America. And we have to ask ourselves and go back to our principles of nothing about us without us, right? We don't make arts priorities without arts leaders at the table. So the question is, who on the executive branch is an arts leader, is an arts expert, is an artist? And from what I've seen, I don't see any artists in the executive branch.
Well, I want to read you a quote that the new Trump-led National Endowment for the Arts sent to 22 local arts organizations here in Colorado and others across the country last week as they cut almost $500,000 in grant funding for those organizations in Colorado. This letter said, quote, "The NEA will now prioritize projects that elevate the nation's HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions, celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence, foster AI competency, empower houses of worship to serve communities, and assist with disaster recovery, foster skilled trade jobs, make America healthy again, support the military and veterans, support tribal communities, make the District of Columbia safe and beautiful, and support the economic development of Asian American communities." Again, this is from the NEA. What did that say to you?
You know, I'm all about art at the intersection of everything in our community, right? So art should be at the table of public health and safety, of cultural responsiveness, of storytelling. But this is a lot, right? These priorities, if anything, it feels like a bit of a gumbo. You know, why are certain priorities in here? Why are other priorities out? And it, in some ways, seems out of alignment with this administration's pushback on DEI. And their pushback on that is really everything should be for everyone, which I think, you know, many of us agree, but so much of our work around, let's say, HBCUs, Latino serving organizations,
And historically Black universities.
right, colleges and universities, you know, that is because we have realized as a society that these are underrepresented and historically marginalized groups who need a stronger seat at the table. So it's interesting to me that they threw all of that in with other priorities like AI and their, you know, RFK Jr.'s priorities. So if anything, it's confusing.
Yeah.
And it's worth an investigation, you know, a deeper dive.
Let's come back to the local angle.
Yeah.
Are you having conversations with other local arts leaders about trying to maybe reframe your programs in line with this vision to get that money?
Absolutely. What I'm hearing from most people in the arts is that they are not going to apply or reapply for NEA funds, right? That they're not going to try to conform themselves to get this funding. I think that that is probably music to the ears of this executive branch, right? because they have written this specifically for the constituents that they want to fund, right? And so those of us in the arts that they don't want to fund, they want us to sort of voluntarily back out. Okay, so if we choose to do that, then again, we're going to be going to the same wells. We're either going to cut programming entirely, which means all of us get less access to the arts and we lose jobs, or we say we're going to go try to find other places to get that money. Now, as an arts leader, I am constantly telling arts leaders, do not rely on the arts to fund you, which sounds funny, but at Youth on Record, less than 10% of our money comes from the arts.
Where does it come from?
Public health and safety, mental health and wellness, education support, creative youth development support, because that is really, as an organization, we are doing all of that work, right? So we are offering solutions for public health and safety in return for support, right? So harm reduction, youth violence prevention, things like that. So I'm always working with arts leaders to say, let me help you understand the solutions that you're providing our city and our community, and then let's go tell them what solutions you're providing and see if they'll fund you.
Because this is inherently political, is there a local politician here in Colorado that you think gets art? Is there an advocate in the government anywhere? I have to say, I don't know if I've really seen one other than maybe on a very local hyper-municipal level. I'm like, where's Hickenlooper? He was all about us being a live music capital. I remember seeing him at a Sonic Youth show. Like, this was the guy that I think brought the banjo.
I think it's absolutely beautiful that we're bringing Sundance Music or Sundance Film Festival, right? Of course, I say music again, because the kind of support and push for that is actually what the music community has been looking for a long time. Like, how do we take, and granted, okay, obviously, disclosure, Youth on Record owns the Underground Music Showcase, and I am the co-manager. However, I was a fan and supporter of this festival for 25 years before we happened to get a seat at the table. The reason we took a seat at the table here was to advocate for more investment in an infrastructure like a Discovery Festival and what it does for our community. And I'll tell you what, that's been an uphill battle for me. But at the same time, we're seeing Film Festival, which I'm thrilled about.
I was just going to say Sundance got, part of the reason I think it was assumed we acquired Sundance as a state was because our governor was on board and there were tax incentives that were put forth.
There was a lot of incentives.
And that's an arts, organization.
There was a lot of labor put forward, and that is the arts, right? Like, that's exciting. But so I would say that our arts leaders are out there, they are pushing, but here's the thing. If we lose all this funding for the NEA, what we should be doing together right now is putting together our own think tanks about where that money comes from. We can figure this out financially. It is going to be a hit for us, but I do believe that we can figure it out with, potentially looking at, does the city have a seat tax, for example, of, do we have
other ways to make
other ways to bring the money in? I think on the larger level, we are going to have to continue, all of us as Americans, we are going to have to continue to ask ourselves the question, who sets the priorities for what art is valid and why are they setting those priorities? We deserve to ask ourselves that, our leaders that. That's something that we should be doing at all parts of the government, but in particular when we're talking about art and media. That is the information that we get. That is the story of our time. And so I remember I was a journalism studies major, and I remember the quote on the board at DU. This was, 25 years ago. I walked in and it said, "The media is not so powerful as to tell us what to think, but rather what to think about." If we start to have an executive branch that really dictates what we're allowed to think about, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Well, Jamie Duffy, thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be here.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Bonfils Stanton Foundation CEO Gary Stoyer about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later. I have one made already with like 40 of them. And she was like, this was the hardest project I've ever done. I will never do this again. And then she did one for my sister.